How are you? It's a big pleasure for us for here in Buenos Aires to be with you
I'm
today.
fine. How are you?
Fine, fine. Thanks very much to be here. It's a big pleasure. Do you know Buenos Aires, dear Stefan?
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. You know, my ex-wife is from Buenos Aires, so I spent a lot of time in Argentina over the years. In fact, yeah.
Ah,
Uh,
of it's true that is the more beautiful woman are from Buenos Aires, Argentina.
well, there's plenty of them, that's for sure.
Dear Stefan, in what moment of your life you gonna say I gonna be a race driver?
Well, I think I was. I mean, I started driving go-karts when I was 8, and started racing them when I was 12. But I think it was only around maybe 18. When I was 18, I decided maybe I should try to make a career out of this, because I was playing ice hockey on quite high level in Sweden before then. And then, but you know, then the racing kind of took over. So, and I started to do quite well in the local races. So I thought, you know, maybe I should go to England and see if I can if I can make a career out of this somehow.
The people here yesterday, the reporter I told to make the interview with you, they told me you are a big actor for one time of the best Formula One, the all the time, the most beautiful Formula One. You'll be a principal actor, and that you think is true, Stefan?
No, I don't know. That I don't know. I mean, it's, you know, everything is subjective, of course, but you know, I mean, I had a good career, I think, but you always want more, right? I mean, when you're in the middle, you know, I wanted to be world champion just like all the rest of them, you know, but it was you know, it was, but I'm proud of what I did, and it was a good period to, I think, to be in Formula One, because the cars were unbelievable at the time, you know, with the big turbo engines, and the drivers, the competition I had. I remember the first year I did full time in F1, I think there was 11 world champions on the grid at the same time, you know, so it was a pretty strong field, you know, with some really high quality drivers.
How was drove that car in the Parabolica di Monza in that track are very special for us?
It is breaking up a lot, the signal. I don't see the video, and I can't hear you.
You
can you, the signal is breaking up, I can't hear you.
Okay. Wait a second. You can hear me here. You don't hear?
Vaguely now. I could hear you in the beginning, but not now. Now it's weak. I can hear half of what you say.
Why? And in that moment, you can hear me here now.
Now it's a little bit better. I can't see you now, but I can hear you.
Yes, because I spent out the video because I don't have a good signal for internet. But you can hear me, dear Stefan.
Yeah. Now I can hear you. Yeah. Now I can hear you fine.
So, you know, the last month we lost here in Argentina, in Buenos Aires, a Carlos Reutemann. Do you know Carlos? What concept do you have from Carlos?
Well, I mean, he was before me, just before I started in Formula, so I never really got to know him well, but we met on occasions, you know, in the Formula One paddock when he came to watch races or visit after he retired, or we also met, you know, on other functions a few times, like in Goodwood, I think one time. And but my memory from Carlos Moore was he was one of my early heroes, let's say, because he was very kind of cool looking, the classic kind of racing driver look, in my opinion, you know. So it was, and you know, he was a phenomenal driver, of course, you know, I mean, really a super talent, you know, and so I kind of always looked up to him a little bit when I was young, you know, so, and yeah, I mean, he was a fantastic driver, and I think also a fantastic person, I mean, in his life. And you know, it's always tragedy when these phenomenal people pass away, you know. And but he was, in my opinion, I think, although I didn't know him personally very well, was a terrific guy for sure.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful. The last week we make an interview to Brenda Bernard. She say you are the most
Can't hear
beautiful.
again.
You can hear me, Stefan? Now you can hear me? Did Stefan?
Now I can hear you again, yeah.
Yeah. Brenda Bernard sent to you a big kiss because we talked the last week with her, and she say, "Oh, I love Stefan. It's the most beautiful guy for me." So I'm gonna say that, dear Stefan. Dear Stefan, you think?
Oh, that's very kind of her. Yeah, Brenda was like the mother for all the drivers when we drove there. You know, she was so sweet and kind and helpful with everything. You know, it was she was fantastic, and we had a wonderful relationship, really. You know, so yeah, she was fantastic.
How was your first day in Maranello?
My first day, well, it was the first day. My first day was really the day I started working there almost immediately, because what happened was that we'd been talking a little bit back and forward for over a year, in fact. At some point, or just kind of keep in touch, you know. And then after the Brazilian Grand Prix in '85, Marco Piccinini calls me in London, because I lived in London at that time. And he was there, and he said, "Oh, do you have time? I want to have a meeting with you. Can you come to the Savoy Hotel now, like immediately?" I said, "Well, okay, sure." So I went over there, and he said,
"Hello, yes, I'm here.
Oh. Yeah. Okay, the recording stopped, it said, but okay. Yeah, so anyway, we discussed back and forth, and he said, "Oh, we want to hire you right away." And we kind of agreed vaguely on, you know, a number and everything. But of course I had to contact Tolman because I had a contract with them. So I called Alex Hawkridge, who was the owner of the Tolman team, and explained the situation. And he said, "Well, of course, I'm not going to stop you. If you have an offer from Ferrari, I'm not going to stop you going there, of course." So he released me. And then this was on, I think, a Monday of that week. And then on Wednesday, we then agreed I should fly down to Maranello to meet Mr. Ferrari. So I did, very secretly. We had a meeting in Modena, in the old factory, and met Mr. Ferrari there. We spoke only a few words, in fact, you know, and then everything was agreed. Then on the Thursday, I flew down on a Tuesday. On the Wednesday, we did maybe 10 laps around Fiorano in the car, and then we flew out to Portugal for the race on the Thursday. So everything happened in less than 3 days. It was, from my life changed completely from that moment on, really.
It's beautiful. Who was Enzo Ferrari, the man, dear Stefan?
How was he, you mean, as a person, or?
Yes, as a person.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I mean, we had so many good moments together, you know, because every day when we tested at Fiorano, which was almost every day in the summertime, in fact, between races, you know, we always had lunch together at this little house he had at the track at Fiorano. It was me and Michele, or just sometimes just me if Michele wasn't there testing, and vice versa. Marco and his son Piero Ferrari, of course, and very funny moments, you know, a lot of funny stories, and just like when men are together, you know, and we laugh and joke about everything in life, not just racing or cars, but it could be anything. And it was really very, very good moments.
Do you think the Ken Tyrrell, Colin Chapman, and Enzo Ferrari, they are the last artists of from the Formula One?
I only heard the last artist. I didn't hear anything after that.
If Enzo Ferrari, Colin Chapman, or Ken Tyrrell are the last artists from the Formula One. No.
Yeah, in a way. I mean, you know, because Formula One today, as you know, is so completely different from what it was back then. You know, I mean, back then, every team was run by kind of an entrepreneur, you know, a guy who's come up from nothing and made, because he had an incredible passion for cars and Formula One and racing. And they created the teams, you know, and that's how it was. But today it's all corporate, really. You know, it's big corporations now, and you know, with thousands of employees and owned by big corporations with 10,000s of employees, you know. So it's a completely different game today, of course, compared to what it was back then, you know.
Dear Stefan, why do you live here in this moment in California?
Yeah, that's a good question, actually. I came to America after I stopped in Formula One. You know, I came over here to race IndyCar, and then I met my now ex-wife, and she lived in California at the time. So she then moved to Indianapolis and lived there. But when I stopped racing IndyCar and I stopped my race team, which I had after that, we decided, let's go now to California, because otherwise, you know, we'll be stuck for another 10 years in Indianapolis, you know. And I mean, California is a wonderful place to live. I mean, the climate is perfect. Every day is a perfect day. You know, you have the beach, the mountains, big city, you know, you have everything you need in life, really, you know, to have a very good life. So I'm not complaining. I mean, I'm quite happy here, you know. So the only problem is the travel is tough from here, because it's far. Wherever you go, it's a long travel. But aside from that, I'm very happy, you know, and I'm very happy with my, you know, now I'm an artist more than involved in racing, really. I have a great studio here in Santa Monica, and which I can show you a little bit later if you want. And then, so I'm happy here at the moment. You know, I have a good setup here, and it works well.
What is more difficult, dear Stefan, being a race driver or an artist?
Well, I think I need to go and see a doctor or a psychiatrist or something, because I chose the two most difficult professions in the world to be successful. First racing driver, and now an artist, you know. So, but the difference is that I love what I do, and that's always how I lived my life. I do what I love doing, and somehow I managed to figure out to make it work, you know. But it's exciting, you know, when you live in that kind of gray area where you're not sure what's going to happen next. It's exciting because you have to think quickly, and you have to always kind of improvise, you know. And the art is kind of similar in racing in many ways like that, you know, because you get in the zone, you know, and you're very focused on what you're doing, and it's kind of the same mind process in many ways as it is when you drive a race car. You know, you get in a state of, it's almost like meditation, you know, when you're really focused on what you're doing and you're in the zone, you know, and everything kind of just flows in a really beautiful way. So yeah, so I mean, you know, I love my art too, but I have a long way to go, of course, to be successful. And you know, the problem is with in art or music or anything like that, it's kind of subjective.
Do you hear me, dear Stefan? Yeah, I'm here. I'm here. Do you can hear me? The internet is awful. My internet is a piece of shit.
Are you there?
Yeah, yeah, I'm there. My internet is a piece of shit. It's not working. Here in Argentina, doesn't working.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
can-
it's very weak. Huh?
Okay, okay. Dear Stefan,
Hello?
hello, hello. You can hear me in this moment? You can hear me, Stefan?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
fantastic, fantastic. One driver, one Formula One driver, have more pressure for a team like for Ferrari or drive or for McLaren?
Which is the more pleasure, you say, or?
Yes, yes.
Well, I mean, both had a great pleasure but in different ways. I mean, Ferrari, you can never contact. I mean, if you're a Ferrari driver, it's for life. I mean, it's like something that stays with you for the rest of your life. But with any other team in Formula One, I think you can win 5 world championships and no one knows who you are 5 years after you retire. It's a completely different, it's a extraordinary phenomenon, the whole Ferrari thing, it really is. But of course, the pleasure of driving for them is fantastic, but McLaren at the time in particular, because they really, Ron Dennis, when he came into Formula One, he changed the goalpost for everybody. He kept every year, he upped the ante a little bit higher with presentation, with the cars, with everything, So that period when McLaren was taken over by Ron Dennis, the next 10 years, let's say, was really changed the landscape for everybody in Formula One, and they just had to follow, of course, to because they could see the success that McLaren had. So in that regard, but it's I mean, both teams brought fantastic memories, but in different ways.
How was your relationship with Alain Prost?
It was very, very good. He was great. I mean, he was, in my opinion, still is to this day one of the best ever in history. I mean, he was so good, with how he managed everything around him over the weekend of a race. He was like, I learned so much from him in 1 year that I would have not learned in 10 years, before or after. I mean, he was just, they called him the professor, and it was for the reason, I mean, he was just fantastic, but also he was a great guy. We had a lot of great moments together, a lot of good times together, just on a human level, not just as driver colleagues, And I think even when Ayrton Senna came to the team, he understood, how much more high level Alain was in terms of how he managed the cars and ran everybody in the team around him. He was like the CEO of the car, and everybody in the team was working for him. He controlled everything. He was really extraordinary.
Of course, of course. Talking about Ayrton Senna, do you think the Formula One was more or is more impact in zero impact is like a crash for the death de Gilles Villeneuve or Ayrton Senna?
I didn't understand the beginning of the question.
The Formula One suffered more the death of Ayrton Senna or Gilles Villeneuve? Two driver big, very big.
Which was the second driver? Ayrton Senna and who?
Gilles Villeneuve. Gilles Villeneuve.
Oh, Gilles Villeneuve.
Yes.
Yeah. It's hard to say. I mean, I think the Senna crash probably had a bigger impact because Formula One was already more popular then than it was when Jill was driving. You know, Bernie Ecclestone improved the TV and everything so much over those years, and I think Senna's death, strangely, but it's kind of weird in a way, but I think that also raised the level of exposure to Formula One massively, because, you know, as horrible as it sounds, but, you know, people like the gladiator kind of environment, you know, and I think that fascinated a lot of people, you know, and I think Formula One got a lot more viewers from it.
Okay, I understand. How was your best car, your drive, dear Stefan?
My personal car?
Formula One car.
Oh, the best car. Well, weirdly, I think it was the Tolman 85 car that I never got to race, because that was an unbelievably good car.
The Toleman.
Yeah, it was designed by Rory Byrne, who then became the Ferrari designer, of course. And it was just a terrific car, handling wise, you know, but I never got to race it, because then I got to drive for Ferrari, and then I never got, you know, never got in the car, of course. But I'm not complaining, of course. I'd rather drive the Ferrari than the Tolman, but but that was a really, really, really good car.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Dear Stefan, and how was your best race?
Well, you know, I'll get that question so often, you know, but it's hard to say. You always think it's the race when you win something or whatever, you know, but it's not necessarily like that. In fact, it hardly ever is, because when you have a great car and all the stars line up, you know, you win. I mean, that's just, you know, because that's the kind of the nature of the beast with motor racing. You know, there's never ever been a world champion that didn't have the best car, in my opinion, ever. I mean, whoever wins the world championship is in the best car that year. So, and it doesn't matter, even Ayrton couldn't beat, you know, other drivers in a better car. So the car is absolutely crucial to the success. But other times, you know, there's been races where you're not in such a good car, but you know that you're driving 1000% on the limit what the car is capable of, and you may be fighting with 2 or 3 other world-class drivers who's also in the same situation, and we're fighting, and we're not giving each other 1 centimeter, you know, each, but we race hard but fair, and it's been some unbelievably great races like that. But, you know, you finish 11th or 10th and no one even thinks about it, you know. But I know it because I know what I did myself, you know, as far as like my own performance, of course. So many times it's like that, you know, and there's no recognition for it at all.
I understand. Fantastic. A friend of mine, a reporter, yesterday, they told me make a podium in Formula One with a Onyx is only one talent, very, very talent driver can make a podium with a Onyx. That was incredible, Stefan.
Yeah, it was very satisfying. I mean, that might be one of my best races too, actually, because, you know, we were the underdog, of course, we knew that, you know, but I always felt, you know, I always raced much better than I qualified to. So I always felt if I was in the top 7 or 8 or even 10th, I knew I could do a podium, you know, for sure, because just with my race craft and you know, how I overtake people in the races and stuff. So we planned it quite well the whole weekend, because we knew that the only way we were going to be able to get on the podium, and we thought we had a chance to get on the podium, but the only way we felt was to try to do a full distance on 1 set of tires. And I always listened very carefully to the people from Goodyear, you know, because the tire guys knew much better, of course, what goes on with the tires than our own engineers do. So we did on Friday morning, I did like maybe 3 laps very slowly on the set that was going to be my race set. And then I did the same thing on Saturday morning. So I let them cure just a small heat cycle and then let them cure overnight. And then the same thing Saturday night. So that's the race we started on. And they were going to, you know, of course, if you start on a brand new set, they're going to be 3 or 4 tenths quicker in the first 10 laps, but then they go off very quickly. And that's what happened. So all the other guys had to come into the pits halfway through the race. And I just kept going. I think I was running 6th at that time. So I overtook 3 more cars while they were in the pits. And we stayed on the same speed the rest of the race. And it was, I mean, the left front tire was, I could see the steel on the weave on the tire the last 15 laps. I mean, I was just waiting for it to go poof, you know, in that long right hand corner before the start finish in Portugal. But it lasted to the end. So, you know, in the end it was good.
Fantastic. It's incredible. It's incredible. Dear Stefan, being called for Ferrari is like an actor win an Oscar.
Which one? Sorry, I didn't hear that, sir.
The most important thing for a driver is being called for Enzo Ferrari.
The most important what? Sorry.
For a driver is being calling for Enzo Ferrari, a drive for Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think it's, you know, it's the ultimate accolade for any driver to first to drive for Ferrari, but even more when it was Enzo Ferrari who chose you as his driver. You know, that's like, it's as good as it gets. I think that's what every driver was dreaming about, you know, throughout history, really, is to get that phone call from Mr. Ferrari, you know. So definitely.
You think you arrived very soon to Ferrari? Maybe was better wait 1 year for, because you have a few races in Spirit, few races in Toleman, and
yeah.
What do you think, Stefan?
Yeah, no, it's true. Absolutely. I wish I'd had 2 years, 2 full seasons before I arrived at Ferrari. It would have been a totally different situation. You know, I hadn't done 1 full season yet when I got hired by Ferrari. So I was very, very inexperienced in terms of the Formula One politics and all the other stuff you have to deal with, you know, in F1. So that definitely didn't help me. I think I would have been much better off if I'd, let's say, done 1 or 2 seasons with Tolman, which was, like I said, a very, very good car, and then arrive at Ferrari. Then it would have been, you know, I felt like I could have really been fighting for a world championship.
Yeah, but your second years in Ferrari, you are better than Michele Alboreto.
Yeah, unfortunately, the car wasn't so good that year. You know, it was really a step down in terms of performance from the previous year. So, I mean, my only focus was obviously to beat my teammate, you know, because that's the only comparison you have in a team, is to first you have to beat your teammate, you know, and that was my focus, and I did that, you know. But unfortunately, it only gave me a 5th place in the World Championship that year.
And why do you think the team choose Michele? Because Shane say, hey, you have the wrong guy. With Ferrari take or choose Michele Alboreto, all the friends of the world say the place was you. So you have been in Ferrari.
Yeah, I mean, it was very, very political at the time. You know, there was a lot of politics in the team, and I don't think I was experienced enough again to work the politics in my favor, you know. So I think that was a big part of it also, of course, you know. Mr. Ferrari at that time was quite detached from the day-to-day operations too, you know, so he pretty much only knew what he was told, you know, and so there was a lot of stuff going on that probably had an influence on that, I would imagine. But at the same time, you know, yes, I'd already been talking to McLaren, and of course McLaren at that time was a better option, you know, because they were the world champions, you know, they had the best car on the grid basically. So it was obviously an attractive option to go that way, you know, and join the world champion winning team, basically.
Dear Stefan, you can tell me for you who was the three best driver in the world of the time?
Oh, wow. It's a tough one, you know. I mean, it's very tough to compare one era to another, but I've always claimed it, and I claim it to this day, that my all-time best driver is Fangio, in my opinion.
Thanks very much.
Because you know, he was just, I mean, I've seen some onboard footage. It's unbelievable, you know, if you consider how dangerous these cars were and how fast they still were, at least on the straights, you know, and it took a totally different man, let's say, not person, but I say a man in the right sense of the word, you know, to really tame these beasts and to win 5 world championships like he did. I think it takes a lot, you know, that, so he will always be my number one in my opinion. As for the rest, I think Lewis is up there for sure. You know, I think what he's done is amazing. And what I really like about him is that it's a little bit similar to Fangio in that he's done it gracefully, in my opinion. He's never played any dirty tricks, you know. If he can't win on the day, he accepts it, and he's gracious about it, you know, and his overtaking is amazing, you know, and it's just how he can pull out that last little bit in the moment when it's required, you know, it's extraordinary. So I think he's right up there too, you know. And then of course you have, you know, I mean, there's so many other good drivers, but you know, at the Ayrton, I think obviously is up there, but I think he's only up there in terms of how fast he was, because there maybe never was a faster driver than Ayrton Senna, but I think he lacked in racecraft sometimes, and he lacked in his ability to see the bigger picture, which I think hurt him on occasion.
It's fantastic. You are an incredible guy, dear Stefan. A few little minutes and we'll leave you alone. Dear Stefan, who was for you Elio De Angelis?
Well, for me, he was my best friend at the time. I mean, we spent a lot of time together, you know, between the races, and traveled to the races together sometimes, you know, and he was just a great guy, you know, and I mean, just a great friend, you know, and obviously a fantastic racing driver too, you know, in every aspect, you know, and yeah, it was a big loss when he passed, unfortunately. That was a tough time for me.
I understand. Do you do something different in your sport career?
Anything different?
In your sport and your career, and all, do you have in the sport you make you want to be and make something different?
You mean in my racing career, or?
Yeah, yes, a racing career.
Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, I wish I was 23 years old with the knowledge and the wisdom I have now. Then it would be a lot different. For sure. But I think every person will think the same when you get to my age, you know. Then you've been through life, you recognize all the stupid mistakes you make, you know, and hopefully you acknowledge it and don't repeat them again, you know. But of course I would have done a lot of things different. But I think my biggest weakness at the time was that I was never pushing hard enough for my own good, you know. I was a little bit too kind and too gentle to really fit in the Formula One environment, you know. And that's why I think also I've had a couple of years in a smaller team to kind of get the edge that I had later on. But the problem is later on, you don't get the opportunity in the good cars, you know. So that that would have helped. But it's just how life goes, isn't it? I mean, you know, it's the opportunities, they come and go, you know. But that would, I would say, is the biggest regret maybe that I have, that I wasn't fight a little bit harder for my own territory, let's say.
Yeah, I understand. What difference are between Indy and Formula One?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of differences, of course, you know, in terms of the technology and everything else, but I'm a huge fan of IndyCar. You know, I think of all the racing series in the world right now, IndyCar is the best, you know, because the racing is phenomenal. You can never predict who's going to win any of the races. I mean, every weekend there's a new winner, or, you know, even like in the race, you don't know who's going to win until the last 5 laps, because the strategy always plays a part, you know. It's getting closer and closer now. I mean, so many good cars and good drivers, good teams now, you know, and it's terrific in all those aspects, you know. But the marketing is poor still, I think, you know, so it doesn't get anywhere near the recognition it deserves. Whereas Formula One, of course, is the ultimate, and will always be the ultimate, you know. It's high profile, it's very glamorous, it's for the connoisseurs, let's say, you know. It's luxury, it's exclusive, it's got all the right elements, you know, in that regard. Huge money involved all the time, which fascinates people, you know. They always, oh my God, you know, Lewis Hamilton makes blah blah blah, whatever, you know, and people that makes people interested somehow, you know. So I think Formula One has a totally different kind of image and appearance than IndyCar does. But as far as the racing goes, there is no better or more pure racing than IndyCar of any series in the world, in my opinion.
Fantastic. The last 2 questions, and dear Stefan, when do you start painting?
Well, it's weirdly, I started after Elio had his accident, you know. So because, like I said, we were really good friends, you know, and it was a tough time for me to try to process all this, you know. And for whatever reason, to this day, I mean, I don't really know why, but I went to this art store and bought some canvas and some paint to try to do something in his memory or whatever. And that's kind of what got me started, you know, and I've been kind of hooked on it ever since, you know. It's a great outlet, it's very therapeutic, and it's wonderful when you get an idea in your head, you know, and you start churning it and you kind of make it happen, and you see something eventually finished on a piece of canvas or whatever, you know. It's a gratifying process.
Incredible. And the last question, dear Stefan, here for all the Buenos Aires is a lesson to you. Do you remember where do you been when Ronnie Peterson dead?
Yes, I remember it very well. I was at a friend's house in Sweden, and we saw obviously the race, you know, and the accident and everything. And then when I wake up in the morning, we heard it on the news, you know. Yeah, it was terrible. Because, you know, I lived in Ronnie's garage at the time in England. He turned his little garage in his backyard, he turned that into like a small 1-bedroom apartment, which I rented from Ronnie at the time.
Right.
So yeah, it was terrible. Huge loss too. Yeah.
Dear Stefan, we can take thanks to you a lot for that interview. You are a very big guy. You are such incredible driver. You are the first Sweden to race for Ferrari here in Buenos Aires. We love you. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. Thank you very much, everybody.
Bye bye. Ciao, ciao.
Big pleasure. Thank you. Bye bye. Thanks.